Hey guys, this is Leeza, and today I wanted to talk about the benefits of families being able to talk about sex. In an ideal world, parents should be able to talk to their kids about sex, and kids should be able to ask their parents about sex in an open and judgment-free way. But sadly, that is not always the case. In fact, one of the most frequently asked questions I get in my DMs from you guys every time I post a new video is, do your parents know about your channel? Are your parents okay with the fact that you talk about sex? What do your parents think of your content? So of course my parents know about my channel. It is on the internet. But instead of me telling you what they think about my content, I'll let them tell you themselves. Here's my dad, Arjun.
Hello everybody, I'm making a very short and quick video, although I'm quite camera shy, to explain to everyone that I'm a big fan of Leeza's YouTube channel. I love all the difficult topics that she brings up about relationships, sexuality, about gender equality, about consent, and all these are very important issues. Every young person has to open up their mind to these issues. So I'm very proud of her.
I have to say, I lucked out in the parents department. Here's my mom, Ritu.
Hi, I'm Leeza's mom. I love the work that she does and I watch every video she makes. To me, these are very important conversations that Leeza has started to have with the people who watch her channel. But these are conversations that we ought to have with ourselves and our families and our parents. I really think that kids should encourage their parents and parents should encourage each other to begin to know their kids better.
My parents really are the sweetest, and I am so grateful for how supportive they are of me and my work. They are hands down the biggest influence on my life and have totally shaped who I am today. In many ways, I can talk about all the things that I talk about because of them. Because growing up, home was always a safe space. We could ask about anything, and they would always provide honest and scientifically accurate answers, even when it came to questions about sex and the body. And they're still always the first people I turn to whenever I have any sort of question or problem or need advice or just need help figuring something out. But many of my friends have never talked to their parents about sex. I understand that for many families, there's so much shame and discomfort around the topic that these conversations just never happen. Or if they do happen, there's this idea that the conversation needs to be had only once. The talk, where parents will hurriedly and awkwardly talk to their teenage children about sex, basically to scare the living daylights out of them, tell them that sex is evil, and then never bring it up again. In fact, I'm curious, have you ever spoken to your parents about sex? Or if you're a parent, have you ever spoken to your kids about sex? In either case, tell me how it went, tell me how you approached it. I'd love to know in the comments. So as I was saying, ideally, parents should talk to their kids about sex not just once, but rather throughout their upbringing. It's never too early to start, and it isn't a one-time conversation. For example, parents should start by teaching their toddlers the scientifically accurate names for genitals. We teach kids words like nose and stomach and knee and ankle so that they can learn about their bodies. So why do we teach them strange euphemisms like nunu and choo-choo instead of teaching them the anatomically sound names for their genitals? Penis and vulva are just the anatomically correct terms for these parts of the body. By teaching kids some made-up names or skirting around the subject, what we're really doing is ingraining a sense of shame so early on in life because we're making it seem like these parts of the body have something bad or embarrassing or funny about them when they're just parts of the body. By the way, what are the funniest names you were taught as a kid as words for genitals? I would love to hear in the comments. I'm sure we can all have a laugh. I've even heard some parents tell their little kids that that part of their body is called shame. Why do we make such a fuss about genitals? Let's just call them by their names already. Alright, so then as toddlers grow into little people with the ability to say yes and no, parents should begin to inculcate an intuitive understanding of consent. This becomes more and more important as the child starts interacting with others, going to play school, and making friends. And parents should answer the inevitable questions that will arise about where babies come from. Again, just explaining the science instead of making up a story is the far better approach. If the kid is really young, you can simply explain that a child comes out of the mother's body, and then you can elaborate on this explanation as and when the topic comes up as the child grows older and more mature. As children approach their preteen years, parents should explain the natural changes that occur in the body during puberty, including menstruation. And personally, I think all puberty-related changes should be discussed with kids of all genders genders together instead of having separate talks for girls and separate talks for boys. It's important that regardless of the child's gender, they understand more generally how the spectrum of human bodies function. And ideally at this point, parents should also discuss portrayals of sex and sexuality in the media before their kid ends up stumbling on porn online without any context to turn to. And as kids progress through their teenage years, parents ought to explain the risks of unprotected sex, including STDs and unwanted pregnancy, so that their kids can make smarter, safer, healthier choices as they begin to navigate their first relationships of their own. So as I said, it really isn't a single conversation. It needs to be an ongoing one, and it can start when the child is a toddler and continue all the way through into adulthood. In this way, families would feel so comfortable speaking about this stuff that kids could just reach out to their parents whenever they have an issue or question or concern as they navigate their own bodies and sexuality, instead of turning to sources that are potentially much less invested in their well-being and much less reliable, such as random friends or the internet. And of course, my channel is the exception here. But sadly, many families never talk openly and honestly about sex. So if you're a teenager or a young adult and your parents have never talked to you about sex, the good news is that even though I said it's never too early to start, it's also never too late to start. And since perhaps because of their own upbringing or baggage or conditioning, your parents haven't yet been able to approach the subject with you, you may want to consider being the one to initiate the conversation. Because research tells us that kids and teenagers who are able to have regular conversations with their parents and caregivers about sex and relationships are less likely to take risks with their sexual health and more likely to be healthy and safe, as well as have better mental health. Talking to your parents about sex can seem super scary, but here too, it doesn't have to be one big conversation about everything all at once. It can be easier to try to incorporate conversations about sexuality, sexual health, and the body in little ways so that over time they become a topic that is up for discussion without stigma. Starting the conversation for the very first time tends to be the hardest part, but as with most things, it tends to get easier as you go along. So here are a few tips that might help you out. You can try using a relevant article or a show you're watching like Sex Education, or even this video or any of the videos on my channel as a springboard for the discussion more generally around the topic of sex and sexuality, and then you can slowly work your way up to the stuff that feels more personal to you. Think of the questions you want to ask them and maybe even write them down. You could ask them about what their parents taught them about sex. You could ask them what it's like to be in love. You could ask them about their thoughts on contraception, or really whatever else you want to ask about. It's also worth explaining to your parents why you're asking. Tell them that you think it would be great if you could talk to them openly about this stuff instead of having to look for information elsewhere. Maybe you also want to understand what they expect from you, or maybe you want their help to make an important decision. Telling them why you want to talk about this stuff can help them better understand where you're coming from, as well as stop them from making assumptions. If you feel more comfortable reaching out to them via an email or a message, then that's fine too. It doesn't matter how you talk, just talk. And you can break the ice by acknowledging the awkwardness. You can say something like, I know we haven't talked about this before, so this is a little bit weird for me, and it might be a little bit weird for you too, but I think it's important for families to be able to talk about this stuff. Sometimes just acknowledging the awkwardness can actually help in overcoming it. Okay, so now that we have all of that out of the way, what if you really just cannot talk to your parents about sex? Unfortunately, some parents just can't get over their discomfort around the topic and even threaten or punish their kids for bringing it up. If you're very concerned about your parents' reaction, you might want to postpone this conversation for when you feel that your parents might be more ready. And if you feel that asking about sex could in any way put you in danger, don't do it. Some people may not even have parents. In these cases, you might want to reach out to another kind and knowledgeable adult that you trust. Hopefully, simply by thinking about this stuff, we can help end the cycle of shame that surrounds sexuality and the body instead of passing it on to the next generation. Hopefully, even if your parents weren't able to talk to you about sex, you're going to be able to talk to your children about sex in a healthy way, should you choose to have any. At least that's my hope. And to any parents watching, please listen to your children. Listen to them with an open mind and an open heart. even if you don't always agree with them. I hope you liked this video. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did. And I'd love to hear in the comments what your parents told you when you first asked where babies come from, as well as any funny euphemisms you remember them using as words for genitals. Let's have a good laugh, so share those in the comments. And as always, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel, share this video, and don't forget to follow me on social media. I am at Leeza Mangaldas on Instagram. I will see you soon. Bye.